There comes a point in life when the question is no longer, how much can I accomplish? How great can I look? How will this story appear to everyone else around me? What can I get out of it? How can I master something or be the best at it? Will I miss the ultimate moment somehow if I'm not moving fast enough? Am I behind? There are times when the worries, stressors, and seemingly important to-do lists fall away, and suddenly there's a breathtaking clarity all around us. It's often when life doesn't go according to the vision or plan, when the messiness begins. And the invitation into life seems to always happen at the point when everything feels like it is falling apart. The old questions start to fall away, and another lens on life and creativity comes into focus. The questions themselves change. What am I curious about? Which people feel like warmth when I'm around them? Did I notice anything unusual in my dreams? What kind of universe am I living in? How do I want to contribute to the beautiful vision of that universe? What ways of thinking are enabling me to be present? Sagittarius is the sign that kindles its magic during the chaotic and unpredictable nature of life, when life gets confusing. A small flicker of life awakens and says, what are the ingredients here and how do I connect with them? The magic of this deeply philosophical, visionary, and loving sign has saved my life countless times, with its curious nature in the face of life in all its unknowableness. Somehow the mess and adventure itself become the lens, rather than the search for an outcome or a completion. Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow space blobs and sparkly spirits and sensitive seekers. I'm so happy to have you here in this moment, as always, wherever you are in your process, in the formation of yourself and the constant renewing expression and how it keeps changing and surprising us. We're going to be exploring an archetype that is very, very near and dear to my heart. I will admit right up front that this archetype is perhaps my favorite energy to work with, and I love it so much. Sagittarius has helped me through some of the darkest times of my life, helped me find my sense of joy in life again, helped me to navigate the messiness of things and find my spirit and my joy. I do happen to be a Sag rising, so it is a really innate part of me, but Sagittarians themselves have helped me throughout my life. And just the archetype itself has helped me to explore and think in very different ways. So this is a very special moment each year when I get to sit down and kind of get us set up for Sagittarius season and feel through it and connect with it and prepare a path forward that feels really loving and beautiful. I think every time a new season comes, it's an opportunity for me to develop my relationship with that archetype, because all 12 are so important and they each bring such unique gifts and lenses to our lives. So it's always a great opportunity as well to reconnect with Sagittarian energy. I think we haven't been having some of these bigger, bolder transits moving through Sagittarius for the last couple of years. We've been focusing in other spaces, other archetypes. So it's also really nice to have a reconnection to the boundless hope, wisdom, openness, and curiosity that Sagittarius brings. I think it's an energy many of us are needing right now at a time when we're feeling maybe a little defeated, a little tired, a little disoriented, perhaps figuring out what next steps are going to look like. How do we live in this version of the world? So this is more than, I think, just the season of Sagittarius. This is really about how to kindle that warmth and that fire from deep inside and allow it to carry us forward and help us connect with each other. And I think this season's going to be a really beautiful place to do that. So today I'm going to just chat through kind of Sagittarius, the archetype, and where it's really powerful and profound. And then some of the big themes that are shaping the quality and the feel of this particular Sagittarius season. It is a very interesting recalibration season and is going to be helping us to get reacquainted with our new selves. And then we'll end with a tarot reading at the end just to feel through intuitively together. So get relaxed, get your tea, your creative project, whatever you like to do while we're hanging out together, and let's dive into the beauty of Sagittarius. Depending on your connection to Sagittarius, you might have a really different experience of the sign. I know that all fire signs get teased for being annoying, loud, and loving attention and talking a lot. And that's often kind of the stereotype of Sagittarians, and that they're also very opinionated. They will let you know what they think, and they love to kind of give speeches and talks and ideas, which I think tracks to some extent. And maybe that's why I love Sagittarian energy so much. It just feels really good and joyful to me. But if we peel back a few of those layers and we really look at this archetype, it's quite powerful. Even just this idea of Sagittarius, the centaur. The centaur in general is such a fascinating, energetic quality. I think it really reflects Sagittarius and its mutable quality, because this is the mutable fire sign, which means that we're in a flexible state when we're working with Sagittarius. We're not in a fixed idea of who we have to be, where we have to go, what our goals have to be. There's a really beautiful fluidity and openness to Sagittarius energy, like always discovering, always exploring, always thinking about how my philosophy is changing, how the way that I want to express myself is changing, getting surprised every new season about who I'm becoming. There's this beautiful fluidity to Sagittarian energy. And we can see that even in the image of the centaur as part of this archetype, because it's this melding of the intellectual mind and our very real physical selves, and how these two things need each other and inform each other, and in fact help each other along, rather than it just being about thinking all up in the mind. This sign is inviting conversation between our intellectual and our instinctual, between the needs of our bodies as well as the need for our mind, and to enrich both of these things. It's also really inviting us to reclaim some of our wildness. We're not meant to be penned into these little containers and stay in the same shape all the time and just believe the same things our entire lives. Sagittarius makes grace and space for ideas and beliefs to change, for us to allow for shift in the way we see ourselves, in the way we tell our stories, in the way that we even think about our place in the cosmos as individuals and collectively. And Sagittarius is the 9th sign. It's connected to the 9th house of philosophy and other cultures and world travel and big ideas and optimism. The 9th house is often about how we learn and think about those larger systems of the way we connect to the divine and to the spiritual. It's ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, which is this really big energy that just wants to see what happens when we try things out. Of course, sometimes people will note that with that Jupiterian influence with Sagittarius, we can try to expand too many things at once and feel very stretched thin, tired, worn out, and that can be one way that Jupiter shows up in our lives. However, I think when we build trust with this archetype and this part of ourselves, that we'll kind of know where we're trying, where we really are longing to express ourselves more for change. So much about this Sagittarius season and the themes that we're about to move through have to do with getting to know ourselves almost as though it's the first time we are meeting ourselves. And that's really the work of this mutable fire sign season. And one of the first themes that are really prominent here in Sagittarius season is the Mercury retrograde happening in Sagittarius. And it's really happening through the core of Sagittarius season from November 25th to December 15th. So most of this season we're working with that Mercury retrograde energy. And any of you who have been with me for a little while, I often make a Mercury retrograde video just to remind us that one of the gifts and offerings of working with Mercury retrograde is to get out of have this idea that we always have to be progressing, we always have to be growing, we always have to be making things happen and being on a linear track. It's accepting that some of our best creative ideas, some of our best knowing comes from the nonlinear, when we take one step forward and maybe two steps back, when we go around the same circle one more time and we look at everything one more time, when we aren't as productive, when we fail to meet a deadline. There's a really deep invitation that happens during Mercury retrograde, which is, it's not always about convenience and being on time and making everything happen. There's another level of life that's about this deeper witnessing, and that's going to be a really big theme here. But I think this Mercury retrograde is coming at a really profound time as well. And just the Sagittarius season in general is happening just after Pluto has shifted out of Capricorn for the last time in this cycle, at least, and into Aquarius for the next 20 years. And that's a really big transit, one that I think we're only going to come to understand as we move through it over the coming years. But I think that this Sagittarius season and this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is an invitation to get to know ourselves again, to recalibrate our compass and think about, what am I really prioritizing? Does it really matter if I have these optics, or if I'm succeeding at certain projects, or if I'm spending all of my time working on this version of my identity or this version of my identity? It's a real season of reprioritizing what matters. And I think within that as well, that we as sensitive beings here in this space, I know often forget to include ourselves in that list, that we might need to take a break from certain relationships, activities, or expectations of ourselves, and be open to how we are changing. So for me, this Mercury retrograde really specifically is about recalibrating our compasses, getting in touch with our true north. And I think for some of us, that true north has changed what it looks and feels like. We're getting to know it. So there's a real invitation here in getting curious, not just trying to forge forward, not just trying to fill up our lives with getting as much done before the end of the year as possible. Sagittarius season always happens at this really interesting juncture in the calendar year, when we're thinking about the end of the calendar year and the way time works, where it feels this pressure to get everything done before the new year comes, and to be enough and to do enough and to start thinking about what our goals are for the next year. But I think this Sagittarius season is saying, take all that pressure off. This Mercury retrograde is taking all that pressure off, and get really curious about what's actually true for you. And along with that, because we're working in Sagittarius, and that is about our relationship to the way we write about the cosmos, the cosmology, the map of the kind of divine that we connect with and the way we fit into this world. This is also a really great time to really sit with and think through the way that we tell the story of this universe and ourselves within it, and just connect and commune with that, and write and explore and think and play, and really set intentions around how curious we want to get about ourselves and who we're becoming, as well as how we want to continue to talk about this universe. It's a very complex place. There's a lot of heaviness and pain that goes on living life in this physical world. That's absolutely true. And how do we write a story and intentionally connect with a story that gives us the courage to be here and share our gifts, right? So there's something really deeply spiritual about this Mercury retrograde that is really working behind the scenes, and is really about a deep intimacy with ourselves and our close ones. Along with that, during this Sagittarius season, we also have Mars retrograde beginning. That begins on December 6th in Leo, fellow fire sign Leo, and it will move back through the first degrees of Leo. It's going to move into Cancer on January 4th, so in the new year, and it won't station direct again till February 24th. So we're working with some really big retrograde action right now. And depending on who you ask, I've seen astrologers say that Mars retrograde is a time of increased luck and joy, and I've seen astrologers say this is a time of frustration. So, this is one of those transits, and we're going to do a whole video chat about Mars coming out very, very soon here, where we'll deep dive into this in a much deeper level. But I think it's really interesting that the second half of Sagittarius season will be connected to the beginning of this Mars retrograde in fellow fire sign Leo, because it really builds on this idea. And I think Mars retrograde is also very significant happening after this Pluto shift, because once again, it's like reassessing where we use our vital life force, getting to know what that looks and feels like, where do we feel like we have to perform our lives, or we have to constantly be broadcasting our value, where we feel the pressure to have some kind of optics about what that looks like. I think there's going to be a real reevaluation of how much we have to put online, how much we have to pursue things that make people around us think of us one way or another, reflecting on kind of the woundedness we might have felt about trying to belong by always performing ourselves, always being the brightest star, always having to excel in some specific way. And depending on your culture, that version of excelling or belonging is going to look very different. Sweden and the US, the two countries that I'm really connected with, have very different scales for what success looks like. But they both have their own requirements, and I can really step back and look at both of those and think about it. I think this Mars retrograde in the beginning here, as we're moving through Sagittarius season, another theme that comes up for me is belonging. And we are just dipping our toes into Pluto in Aquarius, and we're dipping into a version of the world that we're still getting to know, I think, and figuring out how to work with that. But I think the theme of belonging is going to come up time and again. In this Sagittarius season with the Mercury and Mars retrograde beginning, it's like a time to really reflect on where we feel like we don't belong. And that part of this kind of journeying with the way we're writing about our cosmology and the way we're writing about how we fit into it is making sure we're taking care of a sense of belonging within that. You do belong. All the sparkly spirits in this space at some point or another have felt this utter sense that we don't belong in this world somehow. But I think this is a real opportunity to include yourself in the belonging. And then it was making me think about how so often it feels like we have to wait for a version of the world where everybody accepts us, everybody likes us, everybody can see, what the value is in ourselves, and then we can relax, then we can belong. But if we waited for that, we would wait forever, because I think it's inherent in becoming ourselves that there are just going to be people who don't get it, don't like it, don't jive with it, don't understand it, because it's just not a flavor that's they're into. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can really begin to live. And I think Mars retrograde is going to be helping those of us who are trying to figure out how to forge our paths forward, explore how to do that in ways that are sustainable and feel safe. And it makes me think too about a quote from Thomas Merton, a great spiritual thinker, who said, "In the spiritual life, to know is to know that you're known." And that to me is a core part of the belonging through the Sagittarian lens, is this idea of just experiencing knowing that you're known by something bigger than yourself. So it's a powerful time. The final thing I want to say about this is the moon cycle will be working with a Sag new moon and a Gemini full moon. And there's a lot of exploration, playful exploration going on with the moon cycles for the Sagittarius season. And they're really highlighting that idea of the unimaginable horizon. Embracing a path that we haven't yet seen for ourselves, embracing a version of ourselves that we haven't fully witnessed or seen come to life yet, but we can sense it just out of view. So lean into that this Sagittarius season in general. and this Mars retrograde and this Mercury retrograde and even Pluto and Aquarius, all of these transits right now are really asking us to lean into what we can sense is wanting to come into the world through our beautiful processes, but we may not be able to get the full picture. Leaning into that as much as possible each day, getting curious about it, getting curious about how we're changing is really where the magic is going to unlock here in Sagittarius season. And it is not going to be in the obvious places. It's not going to be in the by rote strict schedules we have. It's going to be in the mess. It's going to be in the places we don't have control. It's going to be in the places where things are falling apart. It's going to be in the things where we don't get what the heck is going on. That's where really good clues are sitting for this particular Sagittarius season. And I've just been smiling so much talking through this with you all. I have been really sad. There's been a lot going on in my friends' lives and my family life, in the world, and really questioning like how to be here in this world, but somehow talking about this idea of deep belonging and thinking about all the sparkly spirits, feeling that and calibrating to that, and knowing that we're all in these messy, chaotic situations where we're maybe asking really big questions somehow brings so much life to me. I can feel the joy, I can feel the laughter even amongst some of the tears, and I'm hoping that you're getting a sense of that too as we're sitting here together today. As always, I love to finish with this moment of resonance and check-in. I love how I know many of you are pulling your own cards and checking in and connecting, focusing in, meditating, reflecting on the imagery and the archetypes and the energies of it all. And I just love that we share this together. 2 cards wanted to come out already, which is the 6 of Cups and the 9 of Swords. This to me really reflects that integration process that is going on right now in Sagittarius season. And one thing I want to say about this is like it reminds me of big emotions coming up, and that being kind of like the initial impression we might be getting as we head into Sagittarius season. But then along with that, some revealing of what we're really longing for next, and some revealing of the joyful creations that want to move through us. Sagittarius is a sign of optimism, and I don't mean optimism as in sugarcoating and just being like, everything's great, I love it. It's optimism in the sense that I feel deep sadness, and that is beautiful. That is meaningful. And I'm listening, and now I'm curious. That to me is Sagittarian joy and love. It's this deep acceptance of where we are, and then a curiosity about it. It's not, there's no need for it to be just cheerful. And the Chariot. Okay, let's sit with these 3 because I think it's a really nice balance to have these 3 cards here. But I think there's a really deep, beautiful, joyful witnessing that Sagittarius offers up. And I have found that to be true throughout my life, which is part of why I think it's saved me so many times when I felt like I've been in a really dark place. Because there was just some part of me that saw that and saw its belonging in the universe, saw the sadness as belonging in the universe, saw the emotion as belonging in the universe, and that gave me this permission to keep existing and do it in my way, accepting myself as I am. So 6 of Cups is a really nuanced card in the sense that this can be about integrating the past selves, the stuff that we have moved through and maybe like we even miss a little bit, but has also left. We can't reclaim it exactly the same way. This card is very deeply tied to nostalgia, which is a tricky emotion. Nostalgia can leave us trapped in old, outdated cycles, right? And we're seeing that culturally. That can be a really big problem when certain power systems want to live on nostalgia. But nostalgia can also be a moment of just witnessing how we've changed. The 6 of Cups often kind of represents the past also offering up these flowers, this gift to our future selves. So I think when I see this card, it's like integrating how we've changed, maybe feeling some feelings about that, and accepting the gifts of all the past selves, letting them integrate, letting them, with all the wisdom they've gained from trying out different things and stumbling and falling and asking big questions. Our past selves have so much to give us. And by honoring them, we are honoring them by changing as well. So it's an integration card. And the same with the Nine of Swords. We were just working through the Nine of Swords in my Minor Arcana journey over on my Patreon. If you're wanting to move through all of these cards and their really deep power, I'd highly recommend joining me. But one of the beautiful things about Nine of Swords is that initially you see a person probably awoken in the middle of the night, feeling those terrible, horrible night fears that can come up when we have a lot on our mind. But this card is also revealing the deep cosmic love that is waiting for this figure behind the scenes. Depending on the card you have, this is a reminder there's something bigger holding us. And like I said, I think that this season is very much about integrating and feeling, releasing, acknowledging how we have changed profoundly, even in just the last couple of months, and feeling that so that we can get to know who we are becoming. And that for me is Nine of Swords work. I think also Nine of Swords is an acknowledgement that you might have some of these emotions coming up, and that's natural and that's good. And it's also the doorway through which we change. So if you're feeling some of this energy right now, you are far from alone. And there's an invitation here for something really deep and beautiful to come to life. I think what's so interesting is both the Six of Cups and Nine of Swords are kind of this introspection energy. We're feeling things deeply in our internal landscapes, in the way it feels to get to know ourselves and recalibrate and think about how we're changing. And then the Chariot is very outward focused. It's like how we're moving out into the world. And a lot of images of the Chariot will show this charioteer leaving behind old foundation, leaving behind an old walled city, leaving behind a set of towers, old foundations that no longer serve us. Part of the beauty of the Chariot, and it's really making me think about the Mars retrograde, which is going to move back into Cancer in January, and the Chariot is the card tied to Cancer. So it's also making me think about, like, this card is one about moving forward in life and striving for something and seeing a goal and moving toward it. And it's making me think about how one of the things I think this time right now is getting us clear on what we're actually moving toward, what we're actually wanting to move toward, and owning that. But it has to be really true. It can't just be the optics of it. It can't just be the safety of doing the same thing over and over again, right? That we know how to do and people expect from us. It's like it has to be something that is really true, because it requires courage to leave behind the old foundation. And I think with these introspective cards and then this very focused, visionary, moving forward card, it's like this calibration of understanding, what am I moving toward next? What is actually true for me right now? What am I going to use this vital life force for? And what am I no longer going to pursue, right? So there's just this, like I said, that word recalibration is so powerful. I know I've seen a few mentions in just different blogs in the astrology world. I'm always checking in, like, what are people saying? It's really interesting. And I've seen a few that are saying, oh, it's really disorienting. It's just going to be spinning. And who am I? But to me, I don't think we're confused. Like, I don't ever think that times of introspection and recalibration are confusing. I think they're deeply clarifying. And often, things that just seemed so important, they fall away, and then this clarity comes in. And I think that is really the process of working through the Sagittarius season. It's a very deeply emotive one. And while the archetype of Sagittarius is joyful and playful, sometimes Sagittarius season can take us to some very deep, profound places, because secretly Sagittarius is quite deep and profound, and brings us back to, like, our core beliefs about ourselves and the universe, and how that's shaping who we're becoming, and how that's shaping how we let ourselves exist here. So I would be really curious to hear how you're feeling as we move into Sagittarius season. I know many of us are moving through it right now, and myself included, absolutely. And there's been a lot of emotions rising to the surface. just every day pretty much is how I feel right now. And so I'm really curious to hear how it's feeling for you as we head into this new season. As always, I'm offering a lot of support over on my Patreon. It's such a beautiful community of safe, lovely beings who also emotively feel so much. I love sharing over there. Every week I'm offering up resources and safe spaces. And if you want to join my Magic Makers tier, we do a Zoom gathering every month to really feel together and chat through it all. So I'd love to see you there. You can find me on Instagram. One day I'm going to be posting on there more again at some point. And of course, I love it when you're here. This space means the world to me, and knowing that I get to share it with these sensitive, sparkly beings like you is just the best present ever. So I can't wait to see you here. We're going to talk about Mars retrograde coming up here and so much more good stuff. So I can't wait to see you back here very, very soon.